Hi, everybody. It's Dawn coming to you with another episode of Out of the Spiritual Closet. And today I am joined by a wonderful friend, colleague of mine, Dani Muniz. I said that right. I love to kill everybody's name. But Dani is an intuitive astrologer who is also an advanced Akashic records practitioner. And she also has other gifts and fun things that she likes to do, but that's her basic title. She's a spiritual healer. She uses a lot of different gifts, and Dani is so freaking amazing. She's got this great personality. She makes everybody feel loved and seen. And I was just dying to have her on the podcast so I could share her beautiful energy with everybody. So welcome, Dani.
Hi, Dawn.
So good to have
Thank
you.
you for that. Oh, I'm blessed to be here. I have loved watching your journey, and I love that I have an opportunity to sit down and connect with you more today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know a lot more about Dani today. So I use this as an opportunity here. Tell me your secrets. No.
Let's do it.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How the heck did you become a spiritual healer? Why? How? Anything you want to tell about how come you're a spiritual healer?
Yeah, I love this question. And I think for me, it starts at the moment that I decided to step into the driver's seat of my life. And I want to take you back for just a second. There was a moment when, oh, wow, it's probably about 12, 13 years from now. It's actually coming up. It was December 17th. And I was in my bathroom on my knees. There's throw up all around me. I can't stop crying. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I was shaking. And the thought that was running through my head was, how do I stop all of this? I was 2 weeks out from getting married to a man that I had been with for over 11 years, or we were coming up on that. And he was abusive, and it was something that I was ashamed of. And I felt so much pressure to get married and have kids because I'm the baby of the family, and I'm the only girl. And so my brothers had children already by this point, and here I am in my 30s. I was 31 at the time, and I had no children, and I wasn't married. I had bought a house, I had a great job, I had all of the things, but I wasn't married. So it was as if I wasn't complete. And I wasn't fulfilling my obligations, And so I felt a lot of pressure.
I was going to say, yeah, that had to be a lot of pressure on you because it wasn't your own desires per se. It was the family, society.
And 100%, Dawn, society's idea of who I should be. And I didn't know any better. I was just kind of going along. I often call it like I was in the back seat of my own life, taking in the view.
Wow, that's a great way to put it, Dani. I love that because so many of us have experienced that. Whose life is this, And why am I pushing so hard? Because you wake up one day like you, like, what the hell? Stop the train.
That's exactly what it was like. The train had, and I knew back in February earlier that year, I was in New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and we were with a bunch of friends, and there was something that happened at that trip that my like little light bulb went off and was like, you don't want to marry this person. Like, this is not the path that you want. And so I spent the next 10 months convincing myself that I was strong enough to do it. It was actually the very first time, and I didn't know this at the time, that I was stepping into manifestation. I was stepping into affirmations, because I would say to myself, I had like about an hour drive home every single day, and I would say, I am strong. I can do this. I can get through anything. And I just kept reaffirming that to myself over and over, which allowed me to stay those 10 months. But the train had left the station, and I was like, holy crap, how do I stop this? And I knew it needed to stop. I didn't want to go through with it. And so I made the decision right there and then, and my whole world just stopped. And I believe at that moment was when I first received divine guidance that everything was going to be okay.
But I think you actually got it in New Orleans.
That was the very first time. That was the very first time.
That was when you got
but I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it. I did it. And at the time, I was very involved in the Catholic Church. I was a youth minister. I was very involved with the kids. I sang about 4 masses every single week. I was very involved in the church. So my idea of spirituality, my idea of connection to God or the divine or whatever, was solely what the church had taught me in all those 30 years. And so I had no idea of anything else, because everything else was like, that's weird and that's the devil or whatever. It wasn't. And so I think for me, like, that was the very beginnings of me learning and understanding that there was something else. And so, because I had even went to like my priest and was like, what do I do? Like, and it was like, well, you guys need counseling. Let's get you guys together for counseling. And I was like, no. Like, this is what I want. And so I was so scared to even tell my parents, because, they had, kind of like ingrained in me, like, what are you doing, girl? You need to get married. You can't wait any longer. You've waited long enough. And it's like, so I was so scared that they were going to reject me. And so I talked to my mom, and my mom was like, you're just scared. You're just nervous. You just have the jitters, all of that. And I'm like, I don't think so. Like, there's something else. And so she's like, well, you're going to have to talk to your dad. And it was just like, Ward Cleaver, you got to talk to dad. And so I was at Michael's, and my dad called me and he said, what's up? And I was like, Dad, I don't want to get married. And I just like stood there. I'm in Michael's.
You'll never forget that moment in Michael's, right?
I will never forget that. I will the exact Michael's that I was in. Like, I know exactly what aisle I was in. And he's like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Oh,
that's the
beautiful.
Beginning of me releasing. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was when I realized that I had made up so many stories about my life. And so from that moment, I went on to start learning more about who I was, diving more into healing. My degree is in psychology, so I've always wanted to understand how the human works, how the mind works, how relationships works. And so I like dove in and just started learning all of these different ideas and these different tools. But it wasn't until my love, who is my soulmate and who is here with me now, and he brought spirituality into my realm. And we are together now 11 years. And so 11 years ago was when I officially crossed over.
And then now you're at this next 11 years. So I can't wait to see where she blows it up to in the next 11.
We're in that. It's like these, I feel like I have these periods, these cycles. And so, I mean, it was me making the decision to step into the driver's seat for sure. And then allowing myself to release all the labels, to release all the preconceived ideas that I had created because of the environments that I was in.
Well, I also 100%. Heard you say, and I'm sure now that's what you were doing, but when you would drive home for that hour, you would tell yourself things. You would say, you're strong, you're brave, you can do this, that kind of thing, which you were reprogramming your brain. 100%. And you didn't even know, but instinctually, you knew what you needed. You needed those words, that direction, that mantra. See,
Yeah.
it was an original soul mantra for you.
100%.
Love that.
Like, I didn't realize that, right. Like you said, I didn't realize it at the time. It was just like, this is what I need to get myself through. And when I started actually hearing about affirmations, because I didn't know any of that at the time, I was like, oh, that's what I was doing.
Well, you were just
I was.
following what your heart was telling you and
I
what
think
your
what my
gut was
soul,
telling. Yeah,
my
right.
higher self,
Your
maybe
yeah,
even.
your higher self. 100%.
Yeah.
That was your higher self in there,
Yeah.
on both those things. And then, that still took so much bravery, because when you went to your mom to tell her how you felt, she came back, and not yeah, your mom loves you. She's a wonderful
Oh, of
mother, I'm sure.
course.
However, she had society's voice, and she thought probably had like, ooh, let's go to your dad, because I can't do this, because you're going to put shame on your father, or whatever it is in
All
their
of it.
minds. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was huge. And then for you to actually have that conversation with your dad, because there were so many points where you could have backed out.
Mhm.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah, I'm getting my nails painted. I'm going to change my hair color for the wedding, something like that.
Yeah.
But you kept taking the next step and the next step. Do you think that that's one of your gifts, that you are good about following your soul nudges and taking those next steps, where, I mean, I see you having lots of success in your career, right now. I mean, Dani's awesome. She blows it up everywhere she goes. It really doesn't matter what she's doing, but is it
Oh.
because you follow what like, some people get scared, other people like force it, but do you
Yes.
think that you can, like, you kind of instinctively follow that sweet spot?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I don't think that I did for a long time, even when I was following the nudges, because when I left the church, I didn't know I could leave the church, so to speak. And I didn't know what else was out there. And so I remember this one, my love used to, because when we started dating, he was so funny, because he knew I was religious. And so he kept saying, well, I'm spiritual. And I'm like, okay, I'm religious. Like, what's the big deal? Like,
Right.
I didn't know that
Right.
there was like anything wrong with that. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And he said, he would invite me to do these things, but they would be on Sundays, or they'd be on the weekend when I was in mass, I was in church, and like, I can't do that. And he's like, well, okay, well, maybe one day you can take a Sunday off. And I'm like, no, I would never take a Sunday off. Right.
Right.
Like it was so, that was my mindset. And so, one day, when I was coming to this realization that the church was no longer for me, in the way that I was working with that. Um, I had this vision of like, what are you gonna do? Because the
Hmm.
only thing I ever knew was that's what you did on Sunday. Like, so what do people do? So I asked him, I was like, well,
What do people do on
what do
Sunday?
people what do
I
people do on
sing. What do
Sunday?
you do?
And he's like, anything they want, Dani. And I was like, oh, okay, well, let's go do something. And so he took me to like drum circles. He took me to Reiki meetups. And I was like, whoa. Like,
Right.
but I knew that it was time. Like, my time with the church had come to a close, and it was time for something new. And I knew that, and I trusted that, because it was really scary for me to leave what I had known my entire life to step into something that was unknown. But I trusted that this was where I was being guided. And whether it was God dividing me or something else, like, I was being guided, and I had to trust that. And so that was like venturing into that. And then, I knew that somebody had mentioned, I started taking all of these classes about intuition, developing your intuition and your gifts, and like all of these. And it's just like, whoa, my whole world just like opened up, and it
Right.
never felt wrong. It never felt bad. It never felt misaligned. It actually felt coming home.
Aw, that is so sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I too have a religious background. I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic schools, and I still love parts of my religion. I don't love the dogma around the religion,
Mm,
and I now
same.
understand that. But to each his own. And
Correct.
I try to explain to my husband or my daughter sometimes, I'm like, it's all about getting connected. If you have to go to the church to do it, that's okay. And I used
Hmm.
to love doing that. I still love going and
Hmm.
lighting my candles and saying my little
Hmm.
prayers, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
I love having that. But
Hmm.
I also understand that the reason the church had these things was to help people get connected, to help them tune in, to give them a place to release their burdens and turn it over to a higher power. So, like you, I grew up with that, and it's always been a push pull. In my family, we had a lot of spiritual, psychic people. And so
Ah.
they hid it though from the world. And
Hmm.
so my things of breaking free of religion are different, but
Yeah.
still similar. You're
Yeah.
living according to what society says. And
Hmm.
so it's funny, I just think when it's good and it's based on a higher source, an authentic light being higher source, you can't convince me that there's anything bad. We're
Nope,
helping
me either.
ourselves to grow as humans, helping others to grow as humans. So I think that's a lot of fear,
Yeah.
just a lot of fear mongering. But to each his own, as you said, to each his own.
It is. It
I'm
is
not
what it
everybody's
is.
cup of tea. My beliefs aren't, just like yours are.
No.
How about your
No.
family? Did you have other people, like now that you're out of the closet and
Oh.
you're owning your gifts, do they say, well,
Mm.
great grandma, Cecilia used to do XYZ?
So, this is interesting. So I have a very interesting story here. But I'll say that. So my mother growing up I truly believe she is psychic. I truly believe that she has many, many, many gifts, and she's never allowed herself to explore that.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, she would have dreams, she would have connections with ascended masters, and she would just say things and it'd be like, how do you know that?
Right,
But
right.
she just did. And when I was a kid, I was probably, I think, like 8 or 9 years old, and my grandfather had my dad's father had passed away. And one day I was coming down the hall and my mom was in the kitchen and our front door was right next to it. And I saw my grandfather walk
Wow.
into our front door and walk in. My mom and I both saw it. And I knew at that moment, like, my mom was just like, she didn't know how to deal with it with me because I think she had seen things a lot in her lifetime, but it was my first experience. And so she just was like, did you just see that? And I was like, yes. And she was like, it's okay. He's just here. It's okay. Like, she just kind of like brushed it off for me and didn't want to, get into that conversation, which I totally understand. I was 8 or 9 years old. Like, I was little. I didn't understand. But that was like my first kind of like, my mom, there's more to my
You
mom than I
saw it,
know,
right? Yeah, you're like,
because you saw
wait a
what I
minute.
saw. Yeah.
Right.
And she was calm about it. So like, I'm like, which I think was good for her because it didn't stress me out. It didn't make me anxious. It was just like, this is okay. This is normal. And so I've always kind of felt that way ever since. Like, anything that's ever come into my realm, it's been like, oh, this is okay. It's not anything bad or crazy, because my mom just kind of made it just comfortable in that way.
Oh, that was good.
Um, right. Well, let me just go backtrack
I
for
was
just
gonna
a
say,
second
because
though.
yeah, because that's not exactly how it went in my world. But go ahead. I want to hear this.
My family did not really, although my family isn't super religious, let's just put it that way. They don't go to church. They're
Right.
not, deacons or anything like that, right? They were never that. I always try to pull them into the church when I was in the church, but they never did it. And yet, for some reason, the step into spirituality that my love had kind of started to pull me towards. And I hadn't really officially left the church at this point. There were some things within our family that just, they just got a little, I think as I was healing and I was starting to see I'm going to use the word control that my family had on me. I wanted to like release from that. And my love one day, came back from a barbecue at my my brother's house. And he said, "Who are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Who am I? Danie Muniz right here. What are you talking about?" And he said, "No, no, 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 no. Who are you? Because when you are with your family, you are one person. And when you are here with me, you are somebody else." And that rocked my entire world because I was like, whoa, you're right.
When you're conditioned, you don't even know you're conditioned. Really, I mean, for any of us, right? How many years do people go and do the same things over and over? You know, we can have these big successful lives and all these things going wonderful, but the holidays, Christmas time, people get back together with their families and they're losing it all over the place because we're thrown back into roles that were never ours in the first place, into identities that were never ours. So.
No. And I think as somebody, when you're on the healing journey, and I come across this a lot in a lot of the people that I work with, is you're doing all of this healing, you're starting to understand. And when you first start healing, Dani, and I know you know this, you've seen this, is there's a lot of hurt and anger that starts to come up, right? Because you're pissed off that your parents did this to you, or that you were in these experiences and you're so mad at them, right? And then there's a place that you get to where you're like, oh my goodness, I feel so much empathy for them. Yeah. And at the very beginning of that, I did not have.
No, at first it's about you. It's about you, and it's about what I feel. And oh my God, I got the wool pulled over my eyes, and I just wasted 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. I didn't know I had the key. And then you start figuring it out. You're like, okay, but I understand, but they're still stuck in that loop.
Yep.
And right, it's about roles in society and fitting in these labels and columns, and that's not any of us.
No. So the fear that I had back when I wanted to not get married, that fear came right back in front of me, because my father, I decided for like the second time in my life to take control of my life. Right? I'd done it initially with this not getting married thing, but then this is the second time that I'm like, no. Like I felt so much stronger, so much capable. And I even told my love, I'm going to have to make a really hard decision. I know it. I can feel it. It's coming. Will you be here for me? Will you stand with me? And he was like, absolutely. What do you need? I'm like, okay. So I told my father, like, hey, this is what I've decided. This is what I'm going to do. And he said, no, you're not.
Right.
You think that's okay? And I was like, well, do I like the situation I'm in? No, I don't like what's happening, but this is my decision and this is what I'm going to do. And he said, well, if you think that that's okay, and if that's what you want to do, then you are no longer allowed to come to any of the family functions. You're not allowed in my house. You are not allowed to come anywhere near us. And Dawn, that was over the phone as I was driving home from work, coming through my Bluetooth speaker in my car.
Oh my gosh.
My father tells me.
Yeah, I mean, I would be like on the ground, probably in the fetal position. How did you deal with that?
I was very, very hard, because I'm a fourth house sun. So for those of you that know astrology, fourth house sun, the focus in this lifetime is all around family for me. And so my family was everything, which was why my love pointed out that you were one person here and one person there, because I wanted to stay in the model, in the mold of what my family had created with me or for me, right? That I was in and that I loved, and I knew no different. And then I was creating this other person of who I truly was and who I truly wanted to be, and what was coming out of my soul and they were in conflict. And so I had to make that decision. So I made the decision, and it was like, nope, we don't accept that. And so to this, Dawn, I'll say it to
I'm
you
waiting
from
for
that
the
moment.
happy ending. For
I
happy ending
I
from there.
really wish I could give you a happy ending. It's been 8 years, 9 years now, and it has not been easy. So most of my journey into spirituality and into, you know, really owning my gifts has not been with the support of my family, because they're just not, I'm just not around them. They're just not here. Which is, it is what it is. It's not,
It's
is it the way
hard,
that
but
I would
it's
like it?
easier. It's hard, but it's easier in some ways because you don't
Yeah.
have to conform, and it's hard because you love them and you miss them.
So here's the thing. I didn't know, but my father made the best decision he could have possibly made for me, because I needed to go out on my own and figure some things out. I did it because I think if they would have been around, I would have second guessed things. I would have doubted things. I would have hesitated. I wouldn't have allowed myself to fully step into all the things, but I have nobody stopping me from looking and venturing into anything.
Well,
Nobody's doing that for me. So
yeah,
except for my love, but he's super supportive and on the road with me. He's attending all the classes with me. So we're doing this together, which bonded us even more closer in authenticity, because it wasn't easy,
right.
but it created authenticity because we're not worried about, you know, when we moved to Texas a couple of years ago, I think our bond got even stronger because there's no outside influence in our relationship anymore. There's nobody, and my love's really good at making sure his family stays in their place. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but
No, but it's
not
healthy.
interfering in our lives,
Yeah.
right? He did a really good job with that. And then not having my family just allowed us to grow as a really, as a couple authentically, and each other authentically in our own rights and in our own gifts. So yeah, I wish there, you know what, Dawn, I have so much peace. And, you know, we've been through a lot of, you know, classes together where we've worked on healing,
That's
you
what I
know,
was thinking. I was like, well, she
wounds
knows
in
how
our
to
family.
help. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, but sometimes it is the best thing. I have relationships like that in my family. And also I'm gonna say, I bet you if we ask a lot of the healers out there, many of us do not feel supported from our families because we're usually the oddball. We're usually the one that, you know, now my family's got a lot of oddballs, I'm just gonna say. So they'd be
You're
like,
just one of the
no,
many.
I'm one of the many, but there was a different way of behaving. And even though my family had gifts and knew they had gifts, they knew to hide them to keep themselves safe. And so different but the same. So my point is, I don't think many of us get that support from our family because we're looking for them to hold us up and tell us, yes, keep going, this and that. But they don't know because they haven't taken that step themselves. Unless they have, then they can say, yes, it's going to get better. Yes, you know, you're going to release these things. So yeah, when we understand limiting beliefs and conditioning, whoa, you understand that.
Everything changes.
That's, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Everything changes.
Yeah, I have so much love and forgiveness and empathy for my family. You know, right now we're at a very trying time. You know, my father is not doing well, and so it's hard. You know, I'm on the outside. I don't, you know, messages are relayed to me through cousins and text messages, so I don't, you know, it's hard. And yet I know that everything is happening for a reason. I released the energy around my father, the negative energy around my father a long time ago. And I've done a lot of healing around the ancestral lineage of my mom and my dad's lines. And I can understand, which is why I have the empathy now of what they went through and what they've experienced and what they know. And I also know that I am the one that was here to break all of that and to bring it into light. Because you know what, Dawn? My nephew reached out to me last year around Thanksgiving and was like, Thea, this is happening. And he didn't know what to do. And he knew that he could come to me despite the years of not talking to
Yep.
each other, but he knew that I would understand, and he knew that I would guide him. And so he did. And I'm like,
Have
this is
chills all
why.
down the left side of my body as you're saying that. I'm
Yeah.
just like the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I'm like, even if he is the only one that was impacted by the decisions that I've made, that I've shown him another way, that I've shown him another path, and that breaks that cycle of the males within our family, my job is done.
That's so awesome. I mean, really, just to have that ability to say, it's okay that I'm standing here alone because this was the job I was sent here to do. So, I mean, you are tough and brave. That wasn't just programming. You really are. Great job. Hey, if you're doing that 11-year review, you get a gold star and A pluses. Now we don't go for that anymore, but no, we don't. But we still like it. The
But we do like
overachiever.
it.
Yeah, we do like getting that gold star. So I know we're getting short on time here, but I just wanted to talk or to lead into something that you had mentioned was astrology. And Dani
Yes.
is like the queen of astrology. She is
Aw,
so
thank
well
you.
versed in it, and she just has a
Aw.
really beautiful way of explaining things. I have knowledge, but but
Yes, yes,
my
yes.
aunt that's passed was a awesome astrologist back in the day when they did
Mm.
it all pen and paper with the wheels and
Oh,
all
crazy.
of
I
that.
know.
And the only thing, and this is what I love about Dani, is she's realistic, but she's not negative. That's huge because I am going to tell you, if I can find one or two astrologers out of 100 that are not
Mm,
negative,
mm,
um, and so, one of the things I was taught, and I feel like this is how you look at it, maybe I'm wrong, but is that astrology is painting the picture and telling you the story, but that doesn't mean it turns out bad. It means that here's the information. Oh no, but these other, like in the
I
70s,
know.
in the
Oh,
80s,
yes.
it was like you're doomed. You're doomed.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
fixing right there. Just end it now. What?
Absolutely. So it's
So
interesting because when I made the decision to not get married, it was at the end of my Saturn return. So if you know about
funny
your
how
Saturn
we got
return,
there anyways. We had talking about this, and spirit, because Dani has her Akashic records open,
I
I
do.
have mine. Spirit let us play for 30 minutes, and then they said, all right, get to the
It's
point.
time.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you're sad. I'll go back, Dawn, and thank you for that compliment because
It's true.
I'm such an optimist. It's my mother instilled my mom's an optimist. So like she instilled that. It was always like the positive of everything, which can have its downfall. But because we're always looking at the good and we don't realize the bad, which is
That's
why I was
me
in this
too. Yeah.
relationship for like for 11 years that really didn't serve me. Um,
That's not
and
funny,
I
but
was
it's
looking at
funny.
it's just
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it is funny. So I think like I'm always looking at the positive of it and the opportunity that is there, right? Like that was one of the things that I learned as I stepped out of the mold that I was in and started to really grow. I realized that, oh, okay, I get to decide. I get to choose. I get to create. This didn't
Mhm.
just happen to me. I get to create this. So although the planets and the moon, they're doing their thing. They've always done their thing and they will
Right.
continue to do their thing. That we know. The way though that we choose to work with it is everything. So you might say like, oh, your Saturn return, you just, your whole life you just got flipped upside down. That must have been horrible. It's the best thing that could have ever
Right.
happened to me.
Right.
It was a beautiful journey. And then again, when I had an opposition with Uranus, and it was like time to change again. And it's like, okay, well, let's do this. Like, let's take this next step. It's there to guide us. It's there to help us. And a lot of Saturn gets such a bad rap, and I'm like, Saturn's just helping you get back on track, my friend. And it can feel bad because you think that you're on the right path, but it's like, no, there's another path that's even more beautiful. And I can show you that if you allow it. And that's just how I see things. I see things as it's an opportunity for us to just explore more. It's an opportunity for us to learn more about ourselves. Like you hear, I have a sidereal astrology forecast because I do sidereal astrology, which is slightly different than our tropical Western astrology that we pretty much know here in the States. And it's not new. Sidereal astrology isn't new. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's new." No. That's like the original astrology.
I was gonna say, right? It's probably the most ancient.
It is. It's the original way that we looked at the stars. However, when here in the West, we think that we know everything, and so we're like, "Hey, we have a better way of doing it," which is simply just basing it on the seasons, right? Because it was a way for us to manage our crops and when to harvest, right? When to plant, like. So it became that for us here in the West, which is why it's based on our seasons. But in sidereal astrology, it's based on what's actually happening in the sky. And so it can be a drastic difference when you look at your sidereal astrology chart versus your tropical chart. For me, in sidereal astrology, my sun is in the 4th house in Taurus. In tropical astrology, it's in Gemini. Completely two different signs. And so growing up, I was trying to fit in to the Gemini. Funny. Yeah, it's because they're two. We're talking about
trying to figure out. Sign. No, I was trying to figure out your sign before I was getting ready this morning, and I was like,
"Yeah,
I'm gonna say it's a Gemini. I'm feeling Gemini, but she doesn't act like a Gemini. What is that?" And I was like confused. I was like, "Is she an Aquarius?" I was thinking,
right,
somewhere at the beginning of the year. Yeah, I was not getting it though. That's funny. Yeah. So I've never really known that. Okay.
Yeah, so my sun is in Taurus, my moon is in Cancer, so I have that water energy very connected to the moon, and then my rising is Capricorn, so I have a lot of earth energy. Like it's very interesting, and you can see it in my slow cycles of 3 years because earth takes a little bit longer to like make the action happen, which is fire will just blow it up. So I see that as a way for, like, when I looked at the sidereal and I tried to fit into Gemini, and there were things that I related to with Gemini that I never fully related. And so I kept trying to be the sign. And when I learned that it was actually Taurus, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. Yeah, that does make
more sense. I can see that completely. Wow. So now you do the astrology, and you're also an advanced Akashic records healer. And so how do you use the two together in your sessions? Tell us.
I love this. Okay, so I always have the records open whenever I'm doing a reading for anybody, or when I'm doing my forecast. And it's interesting because Dawn, because you have experience, is there's a whole lot that can be explored in astrology. I'm with the intention of to be guided to the information that this person needs to know right now for their greatest and highest good, for whatever it is that they're working on, whatever it is that they're wanting to achieve, whatever it is they're wanting to heal, wherever they're wanting to go, whatever information they're gonna need. So like even in a solar return reading, there's so much that we can talk about, but they're like zoning me in. They'll be like, look at this house, or look at this aspect, or look at this. No, I never took any formal training in any way around astrology. I read books and I like watched some videos, but most of my learning has been through allowing the records to be open and be guided. And so there's things that I'll just come up.
I'm like, oh my God, what a way to look at that. I was like, okay, yes, I could see where, because I do have a basic knowledge of astrology. I've been around it my whole life. I know the signs and all this. But when you start getting into nitty gritty, like I'll get lost. Now, I love to read, and so I'll always read all this stuff like you. But I never in my life thought to do that, to focus on which area is causing me the angst, or how can I move this energy? Which area would I focus on? Yeah. So I love that. So the Akashic records, many of us that are practitioners use them differently. It's part of our tools, but it's just one of our tools typically. I mean, some people, that's all they may need to do, but you'll find most of the healers out there have about 10, because we're usually junkies on healing ourselves. So we've done the journeys and done this stuff to heal ourselves. So that's really exciting. So it's like every day there's a new way for me to even experience the Akashic records. I think that's
absolutely so cool. And it's funny, Amy, right, our teacher, she told me at the retreat, she was like, there's a new way that astrology wants to be expressed, like the guardians are, right? And I was like, yeah, and I feel that. And I actually, during a new moon intention setting I did this weekend, because it's our, as we're filming, it's our new moon, right? And so in that, we did a past life. We went and visited a past life about a vision that we have for our future right now. So we went and visited a past life, which was so beautiful and so awesome. And I received a new way of looking at astrology and adding in some different ideas with it. And I'm like, oh my, I can't wait for this to
as you're talking, yes, I can see it's big. This is big. What she's talking about here, you mark my words, in 5 years, people are going to be talking about this lady here and all the fun stuff. They're like, Dolores Cannon, Dani Muniz. What was I just going to ask you about that? Oh, I was just, when you were talking before about trying to fit into that typical astrology sign. I was hearing though, not self, like human design. So human design has that aspect. And I almost wonder if that'll be part of the astrology as it starts expressing, showing where people are not self, because they're trying to fit. Oh, she's like, yes. Yeah, I was like, holy cow. I mean, like, this is a Pandora box in a good way.
Exactly. And I'm here for it. Astrology, I think, has always been in my world. I had stars and moons in my room from when I was a kid. I read horoscopes all the time. In high school, I would, look up my, is he the one, compatibility. I was always using astrology and always interested in astrology, but I didn't know the depths of it until my love. I'm telling you, my love opened my world, and he was meant to come and like I guess unlock that for me. And he asked me, he's like, "What's your moon sign?" I was like, "What?"
Right. I know.
What is that? Like, yeah, it was cool. And so, yeah, we've had a beautiful journey. I continued on into astrology, and he was like, "Okay, just tell me what I need to know."
Right. Well, I love that. Good. I mean, you could see why I wanted you to meet Dani. She is just a beautiful soul who shares her gifts with the world and very authentic. So that is my mantra. I just want to deal with authentic people. I don't care what your authenticity is. I want you to be not, well, I'd like you to be nice and kind, but just authentic, because the only way to change the world is to show up authentically and in a caring and compassionate manner, and I'm not saying be a doormat, but we all just got to be the change and just start making it better, so that the little ones don't have to struggle like we did when we were little.
I know they'll have different challenges, I'm sure, but not the way we did.
How to get their laser wand or their light sword from their finger from not blowing out. All these new troubles. All right, talking sci-fi now. So Dani, our hour is closing here. I really enjoyed you so much. Thank you so much for your time and energy. I want you to tell the audience about any offers that you have, how to get a hold of you, and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to check out the, I was going to say podcast, Dawn, I was going to say podcast. So Dani is launching a podcast. It's coming the end of the year. The Cosmic Mystic Podcast is the name. I've just finally decided on that. So that's coming, but you can learn about the Sidereal astrology forecast on my YouTube channel, which is Dani at Dani C. Muniz. It's just my name. We'll have a link for that. And then I have so every month we have the sun moves into a different zodiac sign. And so we have a different season. And so every month I put out a monthly guidebook that has all the information about the season. It talks about that zodiac sign. It talks about the changes that are happening in the sky. And there's weekly journal prompts in there to help you explore the energy. There's crystal pairings in there, essential oil pairings in there, and then rituals in there that you can use for the current season. So highly recommend getting that, downloading that. It's absolutely free. You can get that. And we'll have a link right for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very generous offer. Take advantage of it. It will definitely help you through this holiday season.
My goodness.
Yes. It's coming fast. So thank you so much, Dani. I really appreciate you, your energy, and all the love that you bring. So I will make sure that I put all the links in our thing right below us. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.